Welcome to a new episode of I Was 8. I'm Larry Fedoruk with a bonus season of my personal journal storytelling podcast. Let's tune in to this week's story.
I Was 8, The Lost Episodes. Number 4, Don't Touch That Dial.
This story is about growing up with radio, but first, I want you to know that "don't touch that dial" is a completely outdated phrase. A phrase that for a great percentage of the population has no meaning whatsoever. Dial? What's a dial? I'm dialed in, whatever that means. I'm actually amazed at how many people still say it, "don't touch that dial." It's like the expression cha-ching, which, means someone is in the money. Cha-ching is the sound of a cash register. The thing is, we haven't had cash registers that make that sound for at least 30 years? Apparently, we have no other sound effect to indicate money. No cha-ching, and we're also pretty much done with dials. I'm down to like 4 dials in my entire life. Each one of them controls one of the elements on my kitchen stove. Everywhere else, buttons or touch screens. If I'm not pushing, I'm swiping. I'm not turning or dialing. There is one small dial in my car. It's for the audio system, but it's not even a dial. It's a knob. You also have to push it, then turn it to control the volume. Everything else is a touch or a poke or a swipe. Personally, I miss the dials a lot. Some things should still be a dial. Behind the panel, be digital all you want. I don't care, but let me have more dials. Seems more natural. Some days I'll cook something on my stove just so I can say I used a dial. I grew up hearing the phrase, "don't touch that dial." "Don't touch that dial" was used by radio people, some TV folks, to say, "Stay with us, don't go away. Please don't use your dial to change the channel or to shut us off completely." When I was 8, it was really TV that begged for your attention. Look at me, watch me. Here I am, turn me on. Drop what you're doing, sit down, pay attention to me. It's still like that. TV used to take up a corner of the living room. Now it begs to take up an entire wall. It demands to be in every room, screens in your car, in your pocket, everywhere you go. Well, they're not all exactly TV in the classic sense, but they're from TV, begging always, "Look at me." Radio was never like that. Even when I was growing up, radio was just there. Yeah, sure, it asked for your attention, and then "don't touch that dial," but it was more like, turn us on, and if you've got something else to do, go do it. We'll be here in the background. Some people have seen, I guess, the classic depiction of the family gathering around the old radio set for the latest serial. When I was 8, those days were already long gone. I spent my career in media and mostly radio. People often ask me, "You must have loved radio as a kid. Did that inspire you to get into it?" Yes and no. Radio when I was 8 was not particularly inspiring, not like TV. Oh, I loved TV. Radio, as I said, was just kind of there. It was always on in the morning, our clunky kitchen counter radio. They had, I guess, what would have been one of the very first wacky morning shows. They yacked on, played a few tunes, cracked wise. My parents only turned it up when the news came on. I don't remember what was on the news. I was 8. I do remember they had a farm report.
And now time for the farm report. Here's Portly Farmer. Thank you, Dave. Let's look at our grain futures. Barley is barely moving. Wheat is up and rye is mixed with Coke. Now let's go over to sports with Sporty Sporkison.
We're a little town of Waukau, Saskatchewan. In the day, our main source of radio was AM station CKBI, out of the thriving northern gateway metropolis of Prince Albert, PA. When we took day trips to the city, we'd drive by the CKBI transmitter towers. There was at least 3 of them, tall metal red and white towers with guy wires and a small little shack at the bottom with a big sign that read CKBI. CKBI also had a television station, and I always wondered how they got all the people and all those shows into that little shack. Eventually, we started to get stations out of Saskatoon, CFQC, and CKOM. And my recollections are a mix of those 3, not to be taken as historically accurate. I do remember exactly Jack Sennin was there every morning on CKBI radio. That is accurate and well documented. He did the Wake Up, Shake Up show. How's that for a title, huh? Wake Up, Shake Up. I remember seeing him on TV one day. Wow, that's the Wake Up, Shake Up guy. I never thought he'd look like that. He also did a TV show called Spotlight on Talent, where regular people would come on and perform, including sometimes kids. I really wanted to go on that show until I realized I had no talent. Sorry, kid, no talent, no spotlight. Yeah, I see your point. That's a problem. Jack Sennin may have been the first guy I ever heard on the radio playing a Beatles record. I think he made a few jokes about those mop tops, but it didn't matter. I just remember hearing the song, how finally there seemed to be something on the radio for me, like this could be my music, yeah. One day on a trip to PA, Dad had to go see a guy about a thing, and he came back from the beer parlor saying he met Jack Sennin. So Dad had a brief bout of local celebrity in our town because he had met the Wake Up Shake Up show guy. By the way, Jack Sennin passed in 2016. He was 93. I wish I had realized years ago he was still around. I would have given him a Wake Up Shake Up call. Loved Jack Sennin. At 9 a.m., most of the stations went into a talk mode for a few hours. They'd have a call-in show where people could call and complain about the government. But the 2 I remember most were Beefs and Bouquets and Trader Time. And now time for Trader Time. Trader Time was an interesting concept for radio. I guess it worked. In hindsight, I not only can't believe that it was on for 1 or 2 hours a day, but that we often listened intently as people called in with used items they had for sale or trade. Early broadcast eBay, I guess. One man's crap is another man's treasure. Not everyone called in. Sometimes they sent postcards read by the host.
Fred Ziffel of Tisdale has a lawnmower for sale. Red with rust spots. 3.5 Briggs Stratton engine doesn't run, asking $3. Also, will trade for used power tools. For sale, kitchen table by grandmother with 1 leg missing. Oh, it was hilarious. We lived in a small town, but Saskatchewan was a small town, and I mean that in a loving way. Eventually, you knew someone who would be mentioned on the radio on Trader Time. Oh, wow, old Fred is finally getting rid of that lawnmower, I see, yeah. People gave out their phone numbers over the air, and I assume their phones rang off the hook with offers. We'd listen to hours of people with old checkers sets and snow tires, bed frames, bicycles, paintbrushes, sports equipment. I guess it was like browsing through a garage sale or a flea market. You knew it was all crap, but it was still interesting to look at. Who knows, you might find that gem. Trader Time, one of my faves. After Trader Time, it was Beefs and Bouquets, where by phone or by mail you could give compliments or criticisms about anything or anyone you wanted. Another version of the show was called, ready for this, Orchids or Onions. I'm sure there were others.
But on a typical day, you could hear the radio announcer, Fred Ziffel from Tisdale, would like to give an orchid to Roy's sewer service for cleaning out his cistern in record time. Verna Glack says a big onion to the man in the blue Ford pickup who splashed her when he drove by while she was walking downtown. Oh, it was riveting stuff. Beefs and bouquets, or orchids and onions. I often thought there should be a show called Beef and Onions. That would be tasty. By noon, radio went into an entire hour of news. International, national, provincial, local, sports, weather, the farm report, and then a recap of the top stories. Can you imagine that much news? Nah, that'll never catch on. From 1 to 3, the radio stations played country and western music. The most popular show was called Let's Go West. Before I was 8, I was babysat on my grandparents' farm, and I was allowed in my grandfather's car, the old gray Chevy. You could click the ignition one spot left without a key, and the radio would come on. I would sit in the car for those hours, pretend driving halfway around the world, listening to Let's Go West. Send me the pillow that you dream on, so darling, I can dream on it too. Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone. You can't pick a rose in December. On the wings of a snow-white dove, north to Alaska. Hey, maybe I'll just drive there right now. Somewhere around the time I was 8, I got a transistor radio. My own personal radio. Certainly not the luxurious kitchen countertop family radio, but mine. And eventually that little earplug so I could listen all by myself under the covers at night, and nobody else would know I had the radio on. Amazing technology. At night, in the middle of the prairie, if you moved the dial just right and faced in the right direction, never mind Prince Albert and Saskatoon, radio came in from Chicago, Minneapolis, Fargo. Man, that was exciting. Batteries became more valuable to me than candy. Dad, my radio needs a new battery. I just got you a new battery. Yeah, I know, but I need another one. What do you think? Batteries grow on trees? No, I don't. I've buried some old batteries in the garden and watered them daily. No tree. Nothing. Those were my radio days. If I wasn't in school all day, wake up, shake up. Kitchen table for sale by grandmother with one leg missing. Beefs, bouquets, onions, orchids. Some country and western. And then late night under the covers praying for a little more battery life so I could get the news out of Fargo. I guess there was a certain romance to it, so that by the time I walked into the campus radio station run by student volunteers and signed my name to the volunteer sheet, maybe it was those old days that influenced me enough to say, yeah, I want to do this. I know that once I started, it's all I wanted to do. As I did radio for all those years, I often thought that somewhere there was a kid sitting at the kitchen table or driving a Chevy north to Alaska or under the covers tuning me in. I wonder how many actually obeyed when I said, "Don't touch that dial."
I Was 8 is a weekly storytelling podcast written, produced, and voiced by Larry Fedoruk. A new episode every Thursday on all major platforms or Larry's I Was 8 YouTube channel. Tell a friend about his podcast and reach out to Larry Fedoruk, that's Fedoruk, at LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com.